They don't fear your strength, they fear your stillness. You speak less, but when you do, they listen. Not because you are loud, but because you're deliberate. You don't chase, you don't flinch. And that unsettles people more than rage ever could. They don't know what you are thinking. They don't know what you want. And what can't be read, can't be controlled. They say you are cold, detached, too distant, too calculating. But what if that's not a flaw? What if it's the source of your power? Niccolo Machiavelli believed that a ruler should never reveal his desperation, because the moment they see your hunger, they own you. Confidence does not always roar. Sometimes it waits in silence, watches everything, and moves only when it chooses. This is not about arrogance. This is not about being fake or pretending not to care. It's about choosing what you reveal and mastering what you don't. It's about owning your presence so completely that the world is forced to respond to it. Most people are addicted to reaction. They fill silence with noise. They perform emotions they don't feel just to seem alive. But in their rush to be seen, they give away all their power. And you stay still. You don't rush to fill the gap. You let the silence stretch. And in that silence, something shifts. People start to wonder, to overthink, to doubt themselves. Because when a man reveals nothing, the world projects everything. This video will uncover the darkest trait real confidence is born from, a trait most people fear, misunderstand, or never master. You have seen it before, in the man who walks into a room and says nothing, but owns it, in the one who does not beg, does not chase, does not flinch, and yet somehow gets everything. The world teaches you to speak up, to prove yourself, to be visible. But Machiavelli knew the truth. Power does not chase, it waits. And the man who remains calm while the world screams is always the one in control. We live in a world that confuses movement with meaning, where the fastest speaker is mistaken for the wisest, where volume is treated as value, and silence makes people uncomfortable. From the moment you step into society, you're taught to react, to respond instantly, to prove yourself, to defend your opinions, to answer every insult with a comeback, every silence with noise. Social media thrives on this sickness, an endless scroll of outrage, validation seeking, and attention addiction. Someone posts, someone reacts, someone claps, someone cancels. It's not about truth anymore, it's about timing. Who can respond fastest? Who can be seen the most? But the more you react, the more you reveal. And the more you reveal, the more they can predict, manipulate, and control you. Most people don't realize this, because most people don't think, they perform. They have been trained to chase applause, even if it costs them their center. They mistake reactivity for power. They believe their emotional explosions make them authentic, that if they shout loud enough, cry visibly enough, or rage publicly enough, they will be respected. But that's not respect, it's spectacle, and spectacle fades. The truth is this: reactive people are the easiest to control. They are puppets waiting for the right string to be pulled. Say the wrong word, they explode. Give them a little praise, they melt. Take away their spotlight, they beg for it back. They don't run their emotions run them. And here's the terrifying part. Society rewards this. The louder you are, the more attention you get. The more dramatic, the more viral. The more reactive, the more visible. But what society rewards is not always what it respects. The man who's always reacting may win attention, but he will never earn control. Because deep down, people fear what they don't understand. They fear what they can't predict. They fear the man who does not flinch because they don't know what he's thinking. Stillness in a frantic world is not seen as passivity. It's seen as danger. When you refuse to react, you become unreadable. And the unreadable man is always the most powerful in the room. Ask yourself, why does silence make people anxious? Why do they scramble to explain themselves when you don't respond? Why do they overshare when you simply pause? It's because they can't tell what you're thinking. And when someone cannot predict your mind, they fear your next move. In a world of reaction, control belongs to the man who does not play the game, who does not need to prove he's right, who does not beg to be heard, who does not raise his voice just to feel visible. He does not speak to be noticed. He speaks to direct. And if there's nothing worth saying, he says nothing at all. This is not passivity. This is strategy. This is power. Because stillness does not mean you are asleep. It means you are watching, measuring, calculating, choosing the moment with surgical precision. The world rushes to speak. You wait to strike. And in that gap, between impulse and action, lies the trait that separates noise from dominance. Because the one who does not react is the one who's already in control. There's a trait every truly powerful man carries, but almost no one talks about it, because it doesn't look like strength. It does not look like leadership. It does not even look like confidence. It looks like stillness, silence, distance, detachment. It's easy to miss because it does not perform. We're taught to recognize confidence by what it shows. The bold speaker, the wide smile, the handshake with eye contact, the man who takes space in the room. But real confidence, undeniable, untouchable confidence, doesn't chase visibility. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need to be seen to know it exists. Because its strength comes from restraint. This is the dark trait. Emotional detachment, unreadability, composure under fire, the ability to feel everything and reveal nothing. It's the man who holds back when he could explode, who says less when he could dominate, who waits when everyone else rushes, not because he's weak, but because he's already won internally, so the outside world doesn't shake him. He is the eye of the storm, calm on the surface, but if you got close enough, you'd feel the fire he's holding back. That's what makes him terrifying. To the average person, this trait looks like arrogance. They say, he's cold. He doesn't care. He's disconnected. But here's what they don't understand. It takes far more strength to hold back than to lash out. Far more intelligence to stay unreadable than to overshare. The man who's mastered this trait has trained himself to wait, to feel emotion without acting on it. He doesn't seek comfort in being understood. He finds power in being misunderstood. This is not passivity. It's precision. There's a difference between freezing up and holding position, between staying silent and making others speak first. Most people can't tell the difference because they've never had to earn their power. They chase validation to feel secure. They over-explain to be accepted. They move fast to avoid being questioned. But the man who carries the dark trait doesn't run from discomfort. He carries it, like armor under the skin. You've seen this in real life. He's the guy who walks into a room and says nothing. Yet everyone turns. The one who doesn't jump into every debate, but when he finally speaks, everyone goes quiet. At work, he's not the loudest leader, but he's the one no one wants to disappoint. In relationships, he's not emotionally cold. He just doesn't offer himself cheaply. He doesn't text back out of impulse. He doesn't explain himself to win you over. He doesn't beg to be chosen. He is selective with his energy. And that selectivity is mistaken for ego, when really, it's discipline. This kind of presence can't be faked, because it comes from years of silence, failure, and self-mastery. You don't become unreadable overnight. You become unreadable when you've been broken and chose not to announce it. When you felt pain so deeply that now, you let others speak first, not because you're afraid to talk, but because you've realized most noise isn't worth responding to. This dark trait is uncomfortable for others because it strips away their illusions. When you stay still, others reveal themselves. When you say nothing, they confess too much. When you show no hunger, they wonder what you're hiding. And that mystery, that lack of access, is what gives you control. But let's be clear, this trait is not about becoming numb. It's not emotional shutdown. It's emotional sovereignty. You still feel everything. You're just not ruled by what you feel. You choose when to express. You choose what to expose. And because you choose, your presence becomes sacred. Your silence becomes expensive. Your reaction, when it finally comes, carries weight. This is what separates real confidence from performance. Confidence isn't found in noise. It's found in control. And control begins the moment you stop reacting to everything that pulls at you. Niccolo Machiavelli did not believe in kindness. He believed in power, but not the kind that shouts, flaunts, or demands attention. He studied a darker form, the art of perception, and what he uncovered was both terrifying and true. It is not enough to be, one must appear to be. In Machiavelli's world, reality was fragile. It could be reshaped, manipulated, if you knew how to control what others saw. Because perception is control, and desperation is the quickest way to lose it. He warned rulers never to show their fear, never to show their need, because the moment people see you reaching, they instinctively pull away. It's not that the crowd is cruel, it's that power is psychological, and once they sense your hunger, they know they own you. At the heart of Machiavelli's thinking lies a constant tension. Virtù versus fortuna. Virtù is not virtue. It's strength, will, force of character, the ability to shape your own fate. Fortuna is chance, chaos, the uncontrollable forces of life, a storm that drowns the unprepared. Machiavelli believed a powerful man must learn to master himself, to cultivate virtù, so that when fortuna strikes, he's not destroyed. And nothing builds virtù like restraint, discipline, nonchalance under pressure. Because the man who panics when the storm comes never had real power to begin with. But the one who stays still, who keeps his eyes open while others flinch, he becomes the storm. Machiavelli also taught that a ruler must know how to be both the fox and the lion. The lion represents raw power, force, aggression, dominance. The fox represents cunning, subtlety, strategy, deception. You need both to survive. The lion to fight off wolves, the fox to see the traps before you step in them. But here's what most miss. The fox doesn't roar. It watches quietly. It pretends not to notice. And then, at the perfect moment, it strikes. That's the power of emotional detachment. You don't need to perform strength, because you've already decided what you'll do when it matters. You become unreadable, not to hide weakness, but to protect your strategy. Machiavelli didn't care if you were strong. He cared if people believed you were strong. He didn't care if you were kind. He cared if kindness served your image. It is much safer to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Because love is fragile, it demands vulnerability. But fear obeys without asking questions. Now, pause for a moment. Does this mean you must manipulate everyone? Number. It means you must master how you're perceived, because the world is already doing it to you. When you remain calm in chaos, people assume you know something they don't. When you don't react to insult, they question whether they even landed a blow. When you move slowly, deliberately, they start adapting to your rhythm. That's Machiavelli in action. You dictate the emotional climate, not by force, but by presence. Most people rush to prove they're confident. They shout, perform, posture, and in doing so, prove they're not. But the man who shows nothing, who speaks sparingly, who keeps his face still while everyone else scrambles, that man terrifies people, because they can't find the edge of him. They don't know where he begins, or what he's thinking. And the unknown always holds more power than the explained. This is why Machiavelli warned, the appearance of virtue is more useful than virtue itself. Not because he hated ethics, but because he understood the theater of power. The throne is not held by the strongest. It's held by the one who controls the story. And that story is written in how you carry yourself, how you breathe under pressure, how you let people see only what you want them to see. Because in a world obsessed with expression, the man who controls perception rules everything. There's a reason the man who says the least often commands the most, because silence is not empty, it's undecipherable. And what we can't decipher, we start to fear, or worse, we start to project. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to face, so we see them in others. We assign meaning where there is none. We invent intentions, motives, judgments, because the silence makes us nervous. When a man shows no need to be liked, no desire to prove himself, and no emotional volatility, people fill in the gaps. They don't just see him, they see themselves reflected back. Stillness becomes a mirror, and in that mirror, people reveal their own insecurities. They talk more, they try harder, they confess too much, they ask questions you never offered to answer, all because you gave them nothing to grab onto. In that nothingness, they give everything away. This is the quiet psychological warfare most people never notice. When you become unreadable, you become the frame others adjust to. They watch you closely. They adapt their behavior to match your energy. They search for signs, for weakness, for clues, but find only stillness. And in that stillness, they start to doubt themselves. That doubt is power, because it tilts the frame. You're no longer reacting to them, they're reacting to you. Most people think confidence is about being bold, being seen, being heard. But boldness without control is just ego, and presence without mystery is easily forgotten. People chase what they don't understand. They're drawn to gaps, silences, unknowns, not because they love mystery, but because they crave certainty. And the man who withholds certainty becomes magnetic. This is why emotional detachment, when trained, not faked, is so powerful. Not because you become numb, but because you become sovereign. You're no longer owned by external chaos. You don't offer instant validation. You don't flinch at tension. You don't speak to fill space. You speak when the words matter. That restraint creates value, because what is rare is remembered, and what is withheld is wanted. In modern life, we see it everywhere. The man who doesn't rush to respond in meetings, yet everyone waits for his input. The woman who doesn't laugh at every joke, and becomes the one they want to impress. The person who doesn't post every opinion, and is taken more seriously when they finally do. We assume they have something we don't. We assume they know something, even if they don't. That's the illusion of stillness, and that illusion is leverage. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." So, what happens when your presence forces them to? When your calm exposes their chaos? When your silence shines a light on the parts of themselves they've buried? They withdraw, they attack, they gossip, they avoid. Not because you're wrong, but because you're uncomfortable to be around. Your stillness disrupts their performance. Your quiet doesn't play the game, and that disruption makes you dangerous. This is the paradox of mystery. The less you reveal, the more people invest in trying to figure you out. The less you chase, the more they feel pulled. The less you speak, the more power your words carry when you do. Stillness is not the absence of energy, it's the concentration of it. It's the difference between the storm and the eye of the storm, between reaction and response, between emotion and command. Because the man who needs nothing commands everything. They will tell you he was always like this, that he was born confident, born calm, born untouchable. But they never saw the version of him that came before the silence. They did not see the man who once spoke too quickly, trying to be liked. They did not see the boy who begged to be chosen, who over-explained, over-gave, overreacted. The truth is, real confidence is never given. It's built, in the dark, alone. It's not a gift, it's a scar. The man who doesn't flinch today was once shaken by everything. He's been misunderstood, misjudged, left out, talked over. And at some point, he realized that reacting only made him smaller, more exposed, more breakable. So, he stopped. Not because he stopped feeling, but because he started training. He trained his silence. He trained his composure. He trained his ability to hold tension without rushing to relieve it. This is what Jung called emotional sobriety. The power to feel everything without being ruled by anything. No outbursts, no need for sympathy, no panic when things don't go his way. Just stillness, sharp, focused, chosen. But that kind of stillness comes with a price. Because before you can control your emotions, you have to face them. The grief, the rejection, the humiliation of being misunderstood. Not once, but again and again. And not defending yourself. Not lashing out. Just sitting in it. Holding your ground. Learning the language of silence. Because silence has layers. At first it's just quiet. Then it becomes pressure, then panic, then clarity. And once you pass through that chaos, you don't need to be loud anymore, because you've already said everything to yourself and survived the echo. He who can sit in silence without needing to be seen is already dangerous, because he no longer craves the comfort of being understood. He doesn't flinch when his presence makes people nervous. He doesn't rush to explain himself in rooms that don't deserve him. He knows that those who are addicted to visibility can be controlled by attention. But he's not addicted. He's trained. And in that training, he became rare. You can feel it in the way he speaks, measured, precise, no wasted breath, no nervous energy. His confidence doesn't perform, it radiates, because it's not built on approval, it's built on awareness. And this is why most people never reach it, because it's easier to pretend, to copy someone else's swagger, to fake detachment, to learn tricks instead of truth. But tricks crack under pressure, truth doesn't. The man who has trained his restraint can sit across from judgment and stay still, can face insult and show no need to win, can walk away from validation because he's not starving for it anymore. He's not cold, he's not numb, he's not passive, he's ready. And in a world ruled by impulse, readiness looks like danger. Everyone wants to be untouchable until they realize what it actually costs. Because this kind of power doesn't come from pride, it comes from pain. The man who seems unshaken today wasn't born that way. He was broken, slowly, privately, and more than once. He learned stillness not in moments of peace, but in the aftermath of chaos, when everything he thought he needed was ripped away, and silence was all that remained. You don't become cold for no reason. You become cold because warmth was once used against you, because vulnerability was once turned into a weapon, because every time you revealed too much, you paid the price. So, you stopped revealing, not because you stopped feeling, but because you stopped trusting that the world would honor what it saw. And that's the cost. Not everyone will understand your calm. Most will misread it as arrogance. Some will call you distant. Others will call you heartless. They don't see the discipline, the effort, the years of inner war it took to become composed. Because true nonchalance isn't an attitude. It's not ego. It's spiritual war, a daily refusal to let the world define you. You feel the same storms everyone else does. You just refuse to let the storm use your face. You don't become unshaken without being broken first. And the man who doesn't flinch today? He flinched 1,000 times before. He begged before he stopped chasing. He reacted before he learned to respond. So, if he seems distant now, it's not because he's empty. It's because he's full of lessons he never got to share, of words he decided weren't worth wasting, of truths no one was ready to hear. But here's the paradox. The world respects the mask more than the face. It honors composure more than confession. It fears what it can't access, and that fear becomes reverence. You don't get to be untouchable without first feeling every bruise. You don't get to be silent without first being silenced. And you don't get to move without flinching until you have spent years flinching in the dark, alone. Confidence is not volume. It's not noise, not speed, not how much space you take up. Real confidence is quieter than most people expect. It does not demand attention. It alters the energy in the room without a word. It does not chase, it draws. It's in the precision of your movements, the restraint in your expression, the calm in your voice when everyone else is panicking. Because power is not proven by how much you speak, it's revealed by how little you need to. The man who truly owns himself does not rush to explain, does not flinch when misunderstood, does not beg for recognition. He's already whole, already clear, already steady. He's not desperate to be seen because he sees himself. He does not need to win every battle because he's already won the war within. He who needs nothing controls everything. Because need is weakness, need is exposure, and the man who shows no hunger is the man no one knows how to defeat. The world has trained you to be loud, visible, reactive, to prove your worth through noise. But every time you resist that urge, you become rarer. Every time you let silence stretch, you train others to lean in. Every time you hold your center while others unravel, you shift the gravity in your favor. This is what Machiavelli understood. This is what every truly confident man eventually discovers. That you don't win by pushing harder. You win by holding your space so firmly that others begin to question theirs. You don't chase the room. The room turns when you enter. And if that kind of presence is something you're building, if you're drawn to philosophy, psychology, and the mindset of true power, subscribe to this channel, not for noise, but for the silence that transforms it. Welcome to Sifos.